everyone. We have been trying to get on this live for a few minutes with Lindsay. We're going to have her jump right in as well. So let me just see if we can add her in. Okay, so she's trying to join.
There we go.
Yay, okay. It still took like a whole minute for you to be able to join.
Oh my God.
That's
well,
okay.
Thank you, Instagram, for at least helping us figure this out today, because I was worried that we were going to have to reschedule. I'm so excited to talk with you today, Annie. Oh my gosh, we have so much stuff to chat about in terms of all things diets, because I mean, at least in my community, I'm weight loss focused. I know you guys have like a weight loss element to everything that you do. So I think that having this conversation about really being able to help women in particular, understand what are the, I don't want to say like what are the best diets out there, but what oftentimes I think there's so much information out there that when you get started, you're like, where do I go? What do I do? I don't even know how to jump in. And I think so often that sense of overwhelm and frustration can ultimately cause us to just sort of, doggy paddle and just sort of stay stuck, which is why I think really breaking down, helping women understand, or alternatively, if you are dieting right now and if you're not getting the results that you want, potentially why this is going on is going to be huge. So before we dive in, why don't you can go off ahead first and introduce yourself. I'll introduce myself, and then we'll just jump right in. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Annie Savage. I'm a naturopathic doctor. I work at a Bay Wellness Center, which is in downtown Vancouver. Of course, we have telemedicine as well. So if you're from somewhere else, you still can work with us. But we focus on mainly women's health. So we're doing a lot of hormone balancing, lots of digestion, skin stuffs coming in. Age range, we're kind of late 20s to 60s. So women of childbearing age. We don't work with children a lot because we're just downtown. But it is probably 90% women that we're working with.
Amazing. I love that. And so my name is Lindsay Wolf. I am the owner of the Nourish Company. I'm creator of the Nourish weight loss system for busy moms. And so typically, I was actually just joking with Annie about this before we jumped on, because I was like, generally I help busy moms, but really my focus is, really busy, like high performing women. And then we were laughing because we were like, who isn't that nowadays? I feel like everybody, all women are really high performing. So really it's a focus. My strategies are really based around helping women who are short on time, but have big goals and big desires and want to be able to achieve them with something that's sustainable. Maintainability is key for me, as I am sure it is for you guys too, Annie, because nobody wants to get phenomenal results only to lose them a couple months later. Exactly. So oftentimes, and I don't know what your experience is, but oftentimes I find with women, there is sometimes a hesitation to either, start a conversation, like, start chatting up with a naturopath or a nutritionist, or, essentially dive in to start to look for help, because there's this belief out there, I think that, and rightly so because of social media and everything on the internet, that when you start a diet, you're basically going to be eating steamed chicken and broccoli and brown rice for the rest of your life. Yeah. And you have to give up everything. And so one of the missions that I have in my business, as I'm sure you guys have as well, is really helping to show women in particular how easy not only weight loss can be, but how easy maintenance can be, because you don't actually have to give up all of these things. You don't have to have these like big jumps and cut everything out, which is why I think I wanted to really have this conversation today. So let's dive in and we can start talking about all of the diets. So in terms of, let's see, we'll just start to go through them. Okay, well, let's talk about keto. I think keto is probably one of the biggest, most popular ones. So what do you typically see, or what are your thoughts on keto whenever, like based on what you've seen with your clients in your own opinion?
So keto kind of frightens me. That that comes from actually school. So when I was in med school and we had our oncology class, we learned just how so much meat can cause large intestinal, like colon cancer. So when I hear people who are living off like bacon fat and cream and just meat and like dairy heavy cream, I just get afraid. I don't think it's a very good idea, especially long term, and especially for women, because we have that hormonal component that really needs to be addressed. And we do need to keep in mind as well with all of these studies. Obviously, these diets have been studied. We see good results. Some people do great, some people do not. But those studies are more often than not done on men. So they're looking at men's metrics versus women. And we're very different than men. I'm sure we're all aware. And then we have this extra complication of hormones. So that is, for me, that's the most alarming part. Yeah, people will lose weight. People are going to lose weight when you cut out a giant food group all the time. When you know you're in a deficit, you should be losing weight. But for those food choices in particular, the higher risk of cancer, I don't really like. I also don't like the idea that you can't eat vegetables. That, that's very strange to me. The like red peppers, I think, are too carby for keto.
Which is crazy.
Who's ever gotten fat or gained weight from eating red pepper? I'm just really not convinced that someone has.
Really put it, like when you really say it like that, you're just like, oh my God, it's insane.
It's just, I've never heard of someone who eats loads of vegetables and is very overweight or obese or has a whole bunch of health complications. So I don't really buy that one, because again, you're cutting out like healthy vegetables that are so low calorie anyway. And it just, that part doesn't make sense. And then the hormonal aspect for me is where I just think it gets a lot more complicated for women.
Particularly too, that's such a good point, because I was just sharing with you earlier that I actually a while ago was working with a client who had to have her gallbladder removed because she had been doing keto for so long. And it, like so much of it, like to what you were just saying, is because we're cutting out the vegetables. We're cutting out all of that good fiber. So your gut microbiome is just like, I mean, I don't even know like how it's like, I think of like, how do you even function without vegetables? And I think it's like such a key component. So many women that I deal with that have done keto before come to me with massive gut issues. And they're just like, what's going on? And I'm like, well, you've not eaten vegetables for a really long time. You've been eating like such inflammatory foods. Really, I'm not shocked, but for sure. Not to mention, I think as well, when we talk about sustainability, like we, especially as we head in, I mean, I know like a lot of like my followers are in the States as well. Like we're about to head into Thanksgiving in the US. You and I are both from Canada, so we've already gone through it. But, you know, and even after that, we're heading into like the holiday season. I don't know how you would be able to make it through a holiday dinner successfully while on keto, unless of course you just either brought your own food or like I don't even know.
That's true. That's a really good point. that's it seems like people are more willing to do that, which in a way is good, to bring your own food, to kind of remove the excuse that some of us do use of, well, I'm not cooking my meals, so I can't control it. I can't, it's not up to me. We do need to empower ourselves. Like your food, what you're putting in your body is important and your choice. But you're right. How do you do any type of event with your friends, your family, if all you're bringing to the party is bacon and cream? I mean, who's going to be your friend? But you're right. We did talk about kind of sustainability and the long-term effectiveness of these really trendy or fad diets. I think most of them work in the short term, definitely, because you're creating a drastic change in your food habits. But for women, especially as we get longer term, we start to affect those hormones. your period, your perimenopause or menopause kind of symptoms or picture, if you're in that age category, starts to be affected.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier as well, all those inflammatory foods. I know keto tends to be like quite high dairy as well, which is
Hmm.
inflammatory for so many people. So
So much.
on top of the digestion, the microbiome, you might start to see like skin rashes and acne come back and hair loss. And nobody wants that. You shouldn't have those side effects from a healthy diet, right?
Hmm.
So I think we can see that it might work or be effective in the very short term, but then long term it's not sustainable. Like you said, it's not something you could do forever, in my opinion.
And I think very much in line with this is also like low carb. Although low carb, I mean, you may get obviously the vegetables and everything in there. It's still, when we think about it, it's just so hard to maintain long term because, I mean, and I talk about this with my clients all the time. It's the birthday parties. It's the date nights. You and I were talking about this before. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
the glass of wine with your girlfriends. Like these things aren't going away. So we might as
Right.
well better understand how to incorporate them into our lives in a healthy respect as opposed to just saying like, oh, well, you can't have them at all because that's just not sustainable. I'm never going to give up. Like I will always want to have a glass of wine. Like that is just never going to not be part of my life,
Mhm.
especially if I go to like, Italy or something like that. That's like for sure. But I think that as we were talking about before, this is really where that fear comes. It's like I really want to do this diet. I really want to lose this weight. I really want to feel better, but I'm also not willing to give up all of the foods that I love. And I think that because so many people have that belief, there's a hesitation
Yeah,
for really
absolutely.
jumping in and doing it. And so instead, we have a whole society where now they're so scared to almost make these changes that we're going in like the complete opposite direction, which I think is just it's just, I mean, so scary because I think we were just talking about this earlier too, that so much of like my belief for like myself and my clients and whoever I talk to, it's not about removing foods from, I mean, unless of course they are extremely, inflammatory like dairy and
Mhm.
gluten and all. It's not necessarily about removing foods from your diet. It's better if we actually think about it's more about adding in foods. So it's more about adding in more of the good stuff, and I hate to say like the bad stuff, but like everything can coexist in the right balance, which is what I think so many of us are looking to achieve long term.
Definitely. And we seem to have our societies going in this kind of extremist route where
Mm-hmm.
we're very extreme, we're either all or nothing. And then we're so intense about it that it feels like it has to be so extreme. And then people start to feel like a failure because they say, well, I tried keto, I couldn't do it. And they feel bad about themselves. Or they say, I tried intermittent fasting, I couldn't do it. But especially intermittent fasting, how that one really affects hormones up front, especially your cortisol. It's going to affect your blood sugar right away as well. Some people cannot handle the first couple weeks where your body's normalizing to starving for half the day. So,
Yeah.
of course, sometimes people just can't do it at all. And I
Mm-hmm.
have a recent patient who she just lost about 30 pounds doing intermittent fasting, which is fantastic. She's 50 something. She's in menopause. So she lost this amount of weight, feels good. But now she says, my menopause symptoms are coming back. And we looked
Mm-hmm.
at her cortisol curve and it's just totally spiked. She's waking up at night. And I said, I know this diet worked for you for this period of time, but I think it's now affecting your hormones and we're going to have to change what you're doing again. And that's
Uh-huh.
okay. Our bodies are different, especially, I'm going to repeat this same sentence over and over, especially for women. Our hormones change monthly. We know that. So we should eat more for our bodies. Like, let's stop fighting against our bodies. Let's accept that we're not robots.
Mm-hmm.
We change throughout the month. What we want, food wise, relationship wise, like everything wise, is going to change along with those hormonal pictures as well. So I
Totally.
think we need to start to address that and get into more of a flow because this regimented, extremist, crazy dieting is hard on us, because when it's that extreme, you know, we fail. It's a lot easier to fail if it's very, very extreme versus something a little more easy, more gentle. Sounds like you were saying before, you focus on whole foods, which is exactly what we do, and adding in that good stuff. I think we mentioned earlier as well that when you add in more good stuff, you want less bad stuff. And by bad stuff, we mean like literal processed garbage.
Yeah.
And when you eat that, when you're in that convenience, you need it, whatever happened, it's fine. Whenever we fall into that pattern of not as healthy food, we want that not as healthy food. Our taste buds are warped. We don't know what food tastes like. We're tasting chemicals and food that's meant for us to become addicted to it. It's great marketing. It's fantastic, but it's not great for our systems. So when we add in that good stuff again, we can change those taste buds back and say, oh, you want sugar? Eat a banana. Bananas are super sugary, but you don't know that. Exactly. Fruit has amazing flavor. Vegetables have amazing flavor. All those sugars, everything in them is delicious. It's just that we can't tell because we've over-sauced, over-processed our food to death, really. In North America, that's just what we do.
It's so true. It's funny that you say that too, because I was just actually chatting with a client the other day. So she's been in the program for about a week, and that was the very first thing that she said. Like, she was like, I came in for weight loss. I never realized how incredible I was going to feel. 1 week. 1 week of simply incorporating, you know, more vegetables into your diet, the right balance of, you know what I mean, all of the different macronutrients and everything. 1 week, and she was just like, my energy's through the roof. I feel so incredible. There's all of these side effects that we don't, I feel like when you're stuck in a state of not taking care of yourself, feeling shitty almost becomes your new normal. Like, you're just like, well, this is just how I'm supposed to feel. And then you don't realize, like, oh my God, this actually isn't how I'm supposed to feel at all. Like, this is how, you know what I mean? This is how I'm supposed to feel. And I wanted to touch on something too, because you talked about intermittent fasting earlier. And I think what you were saying is so brilliant, because you're right in the sense that so many of us tend to just jump on diets without even considering the fact that we're like, all of us aren't the same. We all require an individual approach. And so jumping on things that can impact your hormones, like keto, like particularly intermittent fasting too, without having the guidance, without really understanding whether or not that is a good approach for you, can have a total opposite effect of what you want, which I think is the worst part. Like, it's all of these, and I think that's the problem, is there's so many diets out there that are just, I've talked about this a lot, that are just like templated, to your point, because of men, and they're based on men's results. And then so women start to do them, and then we don't, you know what I mean? We're not getting the same results. We don't feel incredible. We're not seeing the scale move, or our hormones are changing in other ways. And we think that we're doing something wrong. And it's not.
Always.
It's just that everybody requires, my body's different than your body. My needs are different than your needs. My hormones are in a different place than your hormones are. We both require different approaches. We're going to follow the same kind of protocol, in the sense, like, we're both going to eat really healthy. We're both going to take, you know what I mean? Take care of ourselves. But each of us require a different approach. And I think it's when you start to get to that personalized level that you really start to see the most incredible results.
That's so true. It really does come down to something that may work for you doesn't necessarily work for me. And exactly what you just said. Overall, it's a very similar protocol. It's healthy whole foods with a lot of water and not a lot of alcohol, sugar, caffeine, essentially. But it is nuanced, and it can be different for you versus me, for example, or a 25-year-old versus a 35, 45, and 55-year-old. That also, because our hormones are different in all those decades. So it's something we really need to consider when we're working with women. Men are just easier. They're easier to work with. We can basically, for us, we have a 21-day cleanse that we start many of our patients on, because it just jumpstarts everything wonderfully. Women tend to lose about 5 to 15 pounds on it in that first 3 weeks. Men will lose like 20, 25. Like, it's just like, good for you.
I know. I love
easier.
that you said that. So many women will come into the program and they will do it alongside their husbands, and their husbands will get like such phenomenal results really quickly. And they're just like, what am I doing wrong? And it's just the female, it's just the like it's the cross that we bear. It's just female hormones. It's how our body responds. But reversely, we're also really freaking magical. Like we're the ones that create life on this earth. Like we in and of ourselves, we do so many incredible things. So I think really honoring those hormones and taking care of them and making sure that you do have the right approach and not following into those extreme diets. Like I know you and I were talking before we jumped on about like the carnivore diet. Like I was even listening to somebody the other day, they said that they were eating like one meal a day. And I was just like, you're only eating, like they only have like a 3-hour window where they're eating. Like it's like the most extremist intermittent fasting. And I was like, how do you only eat one meal a day? And also like, anyways, I have so many, like I was like, but it's just that extremist mentality, which I think is just so sad because people, what we were talking about earlier, people really start to believe that this is the levels that they need to go to in order to achieve the success that they're looking for, and it's simply not the case.
That's true. And then we have kind of the discipline factor that comes in. The fear you mentioned of even trying to make a change, the fear of failure, add in that extremist level, and the fear goes way up. And the perceived discipline goes way up. But one of the things I think is so important for men and women, but especially women, because we seem to be taught to fight against our body, to not like it, to be angry with it.
Yes.
And if we shift that mentality and shift all of our decision making throughout the day towards loving our body, creating a really good relationship with ourselves, if you think more of, I'm going to eat breakfast today, I'm going to create the time to eat breakfast before I rush out the door to work because I know I'll feel better. I know my blood sugar will be more stable. I know traffic won't upset me as much on the way to work. I'm setting myself up for a more positive day simply because I love myself. Not because I'm disciplined and I'm crazy following these rules and I have to eat between 7 and 9, and if I don't, the world crumbles and everything goes out the window. But a more gentle approach into just, why are you doing this? You want to feel good. And like you mentioned, a lot of people, men and women, don't know that they don't feel good until you ask them these questions. And that is alarming again, because it shows the awareness or lack of awareness that we all can have to ourselves. We're all going through the motions where, we're having fun with our friends and family, we're going to work, but we're not really even paying attention. We're not aware of what our own body is telling us or what, what the world is showing us. And so we need to create this better relationship so that it's less focused on extremist militant discipline and more of, I want to make this choice for myself because I know I'll feel better. And I like to feel good. That's what it ends up coming down to, especially after that initial jump into a new diet. And like you said, you had your client who in 1 week was like, oh my God, I could feel like this. I had no idea. And we have those experiences too. And that's what you want for somebody, because they get so excited. And that's who tells their friends and says, I started doing this because I feel amazing and I sleep amazing and look at my skin, and all these things fall into place. And it's just usually a pretty simple diet change.
It's so true. I can't remember who shared it. I'm going to butcher the quote too, but it was like, if you focus on health, aesthetics will follow. Like if you focus on just taking care of yourself, if you focus on, which is why I called my program the Nourish System. Like if you focus on just nourishing your body, the aesthetics are it's just going to be like a beautiful byproduct of that. And I think that that's when it gets to be so sustainable, when we are more motivated by love than motivated by hate. When you're more motivated by the fact that you love your body and you want to take care of this human form that you've been given on this lifetime, as opposed to, oh my God, I can't fit into these pair of jeans anymore and I hate myself and I'll do whatever it takes to, like, you can even when I'm saying it, I can feel the difference of like, yes, this is the feeling that I want to have every day as opposed to the other one. So I think that that's such a good point. Okay, I don't want to take up any more of your time because I
Yeah.
know that you're super busy, but I just want to thank you so much for coming on today. So is there any sort of is there any like parting words, anything that you want to say to everybody before we jump off, or?
I mean, I want everyone to love themselves. So make one decision today that is in support of making you healthier. Whether that's drinking your first and only glass of water or eating your first and only vegetable, do something that will help you and get to bed earlier because you don't get enough sleep.
Oh my God, I feel like we could do a whole other live on that. So sleep is like our number one priority. But yes, I totally agree. And so that everybody can find you at Bay Wellness ND,
Yes.
which is amazing. So if you guys have any questions about that, you can reach out to Annie there. Everybody can find me at Lindsay Wolf. And I just want to sort of piggyback on what Annie said and just, it really truly is this journey to health, this journey, I mean, just simply to weight loss really isn't a sprint. It is more of a marathon. And so whatever path you choose, make sure that it's one that you can sustain for the rest of your life. Because to Annie's point earlier, it is like a relationship. It is a relationship with your body. And in the same way that you pick all of your other relationships, you want to be able to nurture it and take care of it and make sure that it can go the distance. So just remember that it's really more about loving yourself and less about hating yourself in order to get there. All right, sweetie. Okay, well, thank you so much for hopping on. I really, really appreciate it. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, we'll see you on the internet. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.